Okay, thanks so much for having me today. I feel like it's been forever since I spoke to a group that wasn't either seminarians or people at Holy Martyrs, my weekend parish. It's just like COVID compresses everything down. So it's great to start opening stuff up again, and kind of the hope that all this brings for us. So I don't like the term like scripture scholar and stuff. People say, because of my job, those kind of things. I usually refer to myself as kind of a Bible guy. And kind of leave it at that. And part of being a Bible guy for me is also being a little bit of a language nerd. I've always been fascinated by words and the power of words. So I want to talk a little bit about that kind of stuff today. That's a little bit my forte. I'm especially fascinated with words that we think are kind of common, and we use them a lot. But there's like a whole bunch of other meanings and things out there. So a little example that has nothing to do with what I'm going to talk about. Take the word nice. So nice tends to mean something that's like agreeable, not offensive, pleasant, stuff like that along the way. But we can take a little like deeper dive into where does this word even come from? What does it really mean? What it's all about? Actually, the origins of that word, it means nesciente, not knowing anything, not knowing in Latin. So really, one of the ways that we can be nice is by not knowing enough about what we really believe to take a stand on something. So I'll just be agreeable and pleasant, And we see that like happening a lot around us. So knowing our words is really important. That's what I want to get to. I'm not going to start with the word joy right away. I know this is a Joy Comes in the Morning retreat day. I'm going to get to joy by the end of it, I promise. But I want to start with a different word, which is a super familiar word that we use all the time, especially as Catholics. Not so much now because it's Lent, and it's not the A word, it's another one. It's another word we don't use a whole lot as Catholics during Lent, and that is glory. The word glory. But we use this a lot liturgically. It's a really common part of the kind of things that we say. But do we really know what it means? Where does glory come from? What's it all about? So let me get some initial thoughts. When I say the word glory, what comes to your mind? How would you define or describe glory? Okay, who's got one for me? Okay, of the risen Lord.
No, the risen Lord.
Oh, the risen Lord. Okay, so an adjective that would describe him. Okay. But what does that mean? What's the word mean?
Purified, like made perfect.
Made perfect. Okay, dialing it in. Who's got some more?
Beauty and light.
Beauty and light. Okay. I think these are all good descriptions of things that are glorious. Yeah. So it's definitely associated with it. Right? Okay. Almighty. Fullness of truth. Okay. So notice how these are all very relatable answers. None of these are wrong. We're not totally dialed in yet, but notice how varied this is. There's something complex about this word. So what I want to do is take us through a little tour of the beginning of our Bible, of where this word shows up. And I promise this is going to get to joy eventually. We got to go through glory to get to joy for reasons that I will demonstrate later. Okay? So, I want to take a look at what the Bible has to say about this word. We're just going to take it through a little bit of Genesis and Exodus, tracing this word through there. Because actually this word shows up a ton. The Hebrew word for glory is kabod. It's actually 3 letters. Kind of like K and either B or V and D. Okay, B and V are actually the same word in Hebrew. So KBD, kabod, or I'll pronounce it with a bunch of different vowels along the way as I'm doing this, but that's the word, glory. But it doesn't just mean glory, it means a ton of things. So the first time in Genesis where glory shows up is in the story of Abraham, or Abram, before he's even Abraham. So in Genesis chapter 12 is the first area where we kind of get this. And Genesis 12 verse 10 says, there was a famine in the land, so Abram went down to Egypt to sojourn there, since the famine in the land was severe. So, ki kaved hara'av ba'aretz. Kaved is the glory word there. It means the famine in the land was severe. So here glory means severe, intense. There's not really meaning glorious there. There's an intensity, a severity in that. Okay? So that's bad. It's severe, intense in that way. In the next chapter, Genesis 13, verse 2, the author is describing Abram, and he says, Abram was very rich in livestock, silver, and gold. From kaved me'od. Abraham was very kabod, rich. Okay, so he's got a lot of possessions, livestock, silver, gold. All this makes him like super impressive. Okay, so here it means like wealth, like impressiveness, okay? Same word. Let's see. Later on in Genesis 34, there's a story involving this guy named Shechem. I'm not going to get into that, but it says Shechem was more highly respected than anyone else in his clan. And that word respected is nikbad. It's a verb form of this, but the KBD is still there. Okay? He is respected. He's highly regarded. People are like, oh, he's a pretty impressive guy. He's like the most impressive one in his clan. That word is still there. The same word, KBD, glorious. Then in Genesis 50, when Joseph goes to bury his father Jacob, this is the end of the Genesis story, he says, so Joseph goes up to bury Jacob, and he says, chariots too and horsemen went up with him. It was a very imposing retinue, it says in the NAB. And the word imposing is kaved, kabod, same thing. Okay, notice, none of this has talked about any glory of God or anything yet. All the way through Genesis, all these words for glory, this same word that eventually is going to be used for the glory of God, is talking about heaviness, impressiveness, intensity, all these kind of different adjectives. It's not until we get to Exodus that glory is going to start to be spoken of God, but before that, we're going to get this word in a couple of other interesting ways. So in Exodus 4:10, Moses objects to the Lord when God calls him to go and speak to Pharaoh. Remember what he says? He says, I can't do it. I'm slow of speech and tongue. And actually, literally what it says in Hebrew is, I have a heavy mouth and a heavy tongue. And the word heavy is that kabod again. Okay? So that's kind of a really negative aspect of it there. But it's this heaviness. Because my tongue and my lips are so heavy, I don't speak well. Then remember the plagues, when they're trying to, God's trying to get Pharaoh to let the people go. So puts the plagues on Egypt, and he keeps saying that Pharaoh is obdurate or obstinate. Okay, what's literally, the word there is, Pharaoh is kaved lev, he is heavy of heart. Okay, like he has this kind of complacent heart. Again, heaviness, intensity. It's finally in Exodus 14:4 when the glory of the Lord first starts to be brought into the picture here. He says, I will make Pharaoh so obstinate that he will pursue the Israelites. Then I will receive glory through Pharaoh and all his army, and the Egyptians will know that I am the Lord. Okay, so it's in God's response to Pharaoh's pursuit that they're gonna receive. They're going to perceive God's glory. The Egyptians will know that I am the Lord. Okay, so this is like intensity of God's presence there. Like they don't think I exist yet. They don't pay any attention to me at all. But my glory will be known to them, he says, in the response to this pursuit. Okay, so then almost done. God, there's the whole Red Sea incident, the defeat of Pharaoh's army. Then they're making their way through the desert, and they're super hungry, and thinking back to how awesome things were back in Egypt when they had all the great food. And they grumble. And so Moses and Aaron talk to God about this in Exodus 16. says, while Aaron was speaking to the whole Israelite community, they turned in the direction of the wilderness, where the glory of the Lord appeared in a cloud. Okay, the Kabod Adonai, the glory of the Lord, appeared in a cloud. And then as they draw near to Mount Sinai, in Exodus 19:16, on the morning of the third day, there were peals of thunder and lightning and a heavy cloud, Anam Kabed, that same Kabod word, a heavy cloud fell over the mountain, and a very loud trumpet blast, so all the people trembled. Okay, so somehow this cloud, this heavy cloud, is perceived as the awesome presence of God in their midst. And it begins guiding them through the desert, and it settles around Sinai, preparing for the reception of the Ten Commandments. So these are elements of the glory of the Lord. And then as they're receiving the Ten Commandments, Exodus 20, verse 12, the fourth commandment is, honor your father and mother. That word honor, kabed, the same word, kabod, kabed et avcha et ve'et imcha. Honor, give glory, recognize glory in your father and mother. Okay, so have I clarified things or made it more confusing so far? Because there's all these different, this is a lot of variety in this word. It's all the same three letters. The same three-letter root is communicating all this stuff. So, what is glory? Let me try to clarify it. Let's boil it all right now. What's the common thread that brings all these things together? There's impressiveness. There's intensity, all these different things. Even the heaviness. Why is heavy glorious? Well, because think about people who grow up trading things, trading in goods. And usually the heaviness of the thing is what makes it impressive. So, like the shekel is the Israeli money, or the pound is the British money. That's because that originally referred to a weight of silver, which is impressive when you get that, okay? So, weightiness. Heaviness can be a really impressive thing. Like when you get in a really cheap car and you shut the door and it sounds like a tin can, versus when you get in a heavy-duty, beautiful, powerful SUV, you shut the door and it's just solid, heavy, right? So there's something glorious about that, Okay, so all of these, I would describe glory, very simply, as an encounter with impressiveness. Glory is an encounter with impressiveness. Or sometimes the way I describe it is, glory is that mystic something that when I encounter it, it makes me go, whoa. That's kind of amazing. Now, there are kind of three different levels of glory. There is the glory that comes, and this is the cheapest kind, the glory that comes, I encounter glory sometimes in things. Okay? I encounter a little bit of glory sometimes in things. And actually, advertisers are paid to try to introduce you to the glory of things, right? So like when you're walking through the mall and you're kind of on a mission, you're heading for whatever you need to get, and then you see something on a mannequin and you're like, whoa, I didn't think of that combination, that looks good. Okay, you saw a little bit of glory there just now. This kind of material glory, right? For me, I love to travel. And so vacation planning can be a glorious thing for me. When you go, you're looking for Airbnbs, you're looking for places to go and activities to do, it's oh, that's gonna be so awesome. So glorious. It's just you go to all these different websites, it's just jumping out at you, it's screaming at you. Okay? So glory can be at the material level like that. Something that screams out at me, grabs my attention. So I want you to start by thinking about that one. This first level of glory. How have you experienced, what are the things that jump out at you and grab your attention? The things you're whoa, that's amazing. I like that. So try to think purely just at the level of things. We're gonna work our way up today. Take a minute to consider that, and I want to hear a couple of examples. How have you experienced glory in things from time to time? And I'm going to grab a sip of water while you do that. Okay, who's got some examples for me?
Walking on the beach of an ocean.
Okay. And as we're going to see, some of these are going to cross over a little bit. So yeah, but that's impressive. It's amazing. You know, beautiful sunset, beach scene, things like that.
Yeah, I just like clouds, the sky. Like I'm always impressed with clouds.
Okay. And there can be good mystic encounters with this as well.
Seeing a beautiful rainbow.
Mm-hmm. Is there anybody who's willing to share an embarrassing thing, like a guilty pleasure, in which you find glory? And you're like,
When you see somebody's like super impressive, really awesome house,
okay. Okay. Yeah, you're driving down the road like, yeah.
usually
This-
they're listed for sale.
Yeah. Right.
Zeros.
Like cycling through Zillow. That's amazing. Yeah. Okay, good one. Any other examples like that?
I'm a jewelry person, so if I see somebody with a beautiful ring or
Shiny. Yeah. Yeah.
that's my weakness there.
Yeah. Something beautiful jewelry, beautiful piece of art, something like that. Sure.
When you're getting on the highway and you have that choice, do I brave the gun it?
So the glory of adventure seeking. Yeah. Okay. Good. Yeah.
Walk off. When I'm watching the Indians and somebody has a walk off, I mean, that's
Walk off home run. Great.
yeah, the home run hit.
Good.
whatever it takes.
Okay, so these are some really good examples of material glory. All right, so that's kind of this first entry level, and this when it talks about Abraham was very rich with silver and livestock and all this kind of stuff. That's that kind of glory. That's that kind of kabod, right? And we see that all around. Whatever impresses you. Whoa, that's a beautiful car. That's an amazing house. That's a whatever. Okay. The next level of glory, far more important. So glory is again an encounter with impressiveness. Is encountering glory in people. Encountering glory in people. So again, think of that image of glory being, I'm just kind of walking along, minding my own business, and all of a sudden, whoa, this is amazing. Remember what it's like to move in a relationship with someone from the level of acquaintance to the level of friendship. Where like you were just somebody that I kept walking past the water cooler at work and we'd say hi and whatever, and then one day you're like, wait, I just heard you say you're into that. I'm into that too. How long have you been doing this? You know, and you start up a conversation about this thing that you both are into, and then you get together and actually do that thing together, you know, and then the relationship deepens. You go from being just kind of a face in the crowd that I know to a person that I know. And there's some glory in that. This is awesome. New friend, a new person to share these stories with. And then moving from friendship to best friendship, you know, where you had that one really powerful conversation that just breaks everything open, where I've been vulnerable before you and you cherished me in this. Okay, that's glorious. That's amazing. I will never see you the same way again. You know, you become different in my eyes. Or think of moving from acquaintance, friendship to marriage. You know, do you remember what those of you who are married, what the thing was like, what it was like in making those transitions? What was it that took you through those milestones? It's like, okay, this dude is different than anyone that I've ever known. This relationship is different. Powerful. Maybe meeting your child for the first time. How much is that an experience of glory? This is, I can't even describe this in words, you know. Or noticing in yourself how proud you are of something that your child is doing. It's like, that kid is amazing. Way more amazing than me. I can't do that kind of stuff, you know? Powerful examples of encountering glory in other people. So I want you to think about that one for a moment. Consider, just flip through your own memory book. What are some of those kind of experiences? What stand out to you as memorable moments of encountering glory in other people? Going from, this is a thing, to, you are you. We are together. And one for me is that I come from a big family. I have 24 nieces and nephews. I have 3 brothers and 3 sisters, 24 nieces and nephews. And my oldest 2 nephews are married now. And so they have, one just had their 3rd, the other is expecting their 2nd, so 5 grandnieces and nephews now. And the 2 boys, so my first 2 grandnephews, they each had a boy there. And they look very much like their dads at that age. And like, I was 16 when my oldest nephew was born. So I was a kid playing with these little kids back then, you know? And just, as with everybody, can't even describe the love that you have for these people. And now I'm kind of friends with my oldest nephews as 30-something guys now. And they have these little boys that look just like it's like this weird deja vu thing where it's like, I remember throwing you around. I remember when I accidentally threw your head into the ceiling. Do you remember? He remembers it as well. But it's just this, it's this glorious thing of knowing these guys from when they were like this to cherishing them as adults and having that whole different kind of friendship. You know, it's glorious. It's just an amazing realization of how proud you are and how beautiful this relationship is. Anybody care to share anything that came to your mind as I was describing that?
I find glory when I hear a good harmony, and the harmony's out there, I go, whoa, that was so good. Or I needed to hear, it's like amazing.
Me too. Other people, sometimes. Although I also get impressed when I hear something come out of my mouth and I'm like, I really need to do that.
I was 16 when my mom had my brother, and so he was the same age as my son is when my son was born, as when my brother had his first baby. And to watch my baby hold my baby brother's baby, I was like, no, oh my, this is not okay. It was very like, kind of very heavy.
Yeah.
And then I cried.
Very heavy, yeah. This leads to intense feelings, but yeah, there's a lot going on behind all this that I'm going to get to a little bit later. It's going to lead us into the joy. But any other memories?
So my 5-year-old in preschool mailed my dad and my mom these little handprints with string, and it was a hug. So then last night my dad videoed us, and he goes, Jerome, I got your hug, and he puts it around him, and Jerome just lit up, and just seeing my 5-year-old light up, like, you got it! It was that interaction between them that just was like, wow, this is cool.
Perfect example of glory. Your son is experiencing glory there in that relationship, okay? So these are really important things to remember. This is, again, glory is an encounter with impressiveness where there's something beyond. This is not a face value thing. It's like I'm having this encounter that is rich. It's intense. There's depth and beauty and power and all these things in there, okay? Okay, so we can encounter glory in things. We encounter glory even better in people. And then, of course, the reason why we're all here, we encounter glory in God. Again, an encounter with impressiveness. So I want to ask you to try to remember the first time that you can recall when God was something real for you, when God was real, okay? For me, again, I mentioned the 6 or 7 kids in an uber Catholic family, okay? So we actually grew up across the street from my church. I realized at one point a few years ago that every residence I've ever had in my life, I could see my church from where I lived, okay? Most of that was where I grew up, right across the street from St. Francis de Sales down in Portage Lakes. So I'm the 6th of 7 kids growing up across the street from a church. So I didn't really have a rebellious phase, because what's that even gonna look like, you know? My oldest brother is 10 years older than me, so am I gonna rebel? He's just gonna pick me up and carry me across the street. It's not that hard, you know? So it just didn't occur to me that that was even a thing, because I have a large extended family too. My mom was one of 9, so I have 36 first cousins on that side, and we're pretty close. And a lot of them go to that church as well. In fact, whenever my priest friends go to St. Francis, they're like, dude, everybody knows you there. And I'm like, well, I'm related to a quarter of them, so. Okay, so I didn't really have a rebellious phase. It was just like, yeah, going to church is what you do. It's not a big deal. But I also, through grade school, I can't remember in grade school ever actually having like an encounter with God, a prayerful moment that meant that for me. Even like First Communion and stuff like that, those were more things where I was kind of proud of myself. Like there was like a milestone I was going through. It didn't really occur to me that much about Jesus. So I know a lot of guys get their like priestly calling in 2nd grade. I wasn't that guy. I didn't rebel, but again, I just didn't rebel against it. It just didn't really register with me. To the point that when I got into high school, I went to St. Vincent St. Mary for high school, and I wasn't, my parish had a pretty good youth group going at the time, but I wasn't planning on joining it because I thought that was for like the fringe kids who like didn't like church that much, so they had to like spice things up and do a youth group thing, you know, and I was like, I'm cool with church, whatever. So I wasn't really planning on getting involved in youth ministry. When the retreat was coming up, my mom asked me, and I was like, yeah, I don't think so. But then a bunch of my friends were going to it. So I'm like, I'll hang out with the guys for the weekend, you know, be a good thing to do. So I went to this retreat, and on the Saturday night of the retreat, there was a really good talk on the Sacrament of Reconciliation, and I had a really good experience at the Sacrament of Reconciliation. And then after that was a time of Eucharistic adoration. And that's the first moment I can remember. I think I was a sophomore in high school. That's the first moment I can remember where it's like, he's actually here. Like I'm actually known. This isn't just like something I'm doing to make sure that I can get into whatever heaven is at the end of the world, you know? Like God knows me personally. And he has things in store for me, really. It was an experience of the glory of God. And there was no locution. I didn't hear any specific thing. It was just, I suddenly knew that my God was here. My God knows me. My God loves me. It was in the context of forgiveness, healing, mercy. So I invite you to consider that for a minute. Encountering glory, the impressiveness, the awe of knowing that you're in the presence of a God who knows you. I invite you to think about that. Try to go back and remember the first time when that became real for you. Maybe you can share a memory about that.
I was raised Catholic, so I can remember the first time he was in my life because he always went to mass and I knew he existed. I mean, I had this feeling. But
And sometimes there can even be like a physical sense, as you're saying, a physical experience. A lot of times there's not. It's more just kind of a change of awareness. But yeah, it's a powerful example. Yeah, any other thoughts on that?
I was just telling my sister's here a story about Holy Mars, and I belonged to Holy Mars. I lived out in Guyana, and at the time, it was probably 3 or 4 years ago, I was just in a really bad spot, and I knew I needed to go to the church. I just needed to go there. I needed to go to church. I needed to sit down and pray, light a candle, do something. And I got up there, and I got into the church, and I heard a few voices, and here someone was being baptized. I'm like, oh, that's not the time for me to be in here, so I kind of exited. And I walked around the back where the Stations of the Cross go through the woods there. So I was going through and like pretty upset with God, and I was verbally, I was the only one there, so I could verbally just like, you're not with me. You say you're with me all the time, I'm just having this own little talk with them and carrying on, like, and stopping at the cross and was talking to them and going through, and I heard some walking behind me, and I'm like, oh my, I was just like immediately like, I'm like, oh my God, this person probably thinks I'm so darn crazy, because I'm talking to the sky, and I turned around and there was no one there. And I heard, because we got the big rocks back there through the walkway, and it was footsteps on it walking behind me. And I went, oh, okay, you're here, okay. I get it, you're here, you're letting me know you are here. So it was really cool, really, really cool.
Okay, great. Thank you for sharing. And some may not be able to point to it. Everyone's devotion looks different and feels different. So you may have never thought about this question before. So you might not be coming up with something off the top of your head, and that's fine too. The Lord is always present. I'm going to get to that a little bit later. So encountering joy in things, encountering joy in people, encountering joy in God. I spent a lot of time, encountering glory in things, people, and God. I spent a lot of time talking about glory this morning, a huge chunk of time, because glory is really the bedrock on which joy is built. Okay, experiences of glory are kind of the bedrock on which joy is built. So, next word that we use a lot, that is the topic of this day, that we're not always real sure what it means. What is joy? And I know you just reflected on some definitions of that this morning, but let's have a go at this. What is joy? Try to define joy. How would you define it for someone? My students always do this too.
Exuberance?
Okay, exuberance,
Elation.
elation. These are descriptions of how joy feels.
I would say happiness beyond understanding, like you feel, it's more than being happy. It's
Sure. Mhm. Happiness with endurance goes beyond understanding, sure. Any other thoughts?
I think this might be, I can't remember, but a lens through which we look at experiences in life, kind of what you're saying, beyond happiness.
That'd be great to always look through a joyful lens. That would be really helpful. I don't think we're super awesome at that, but okay. Here's one that I came to, and I thought about this a lot last Advent. Actually, I did a lot of preaching on joy throughout the season of Advent. This is the definition that I came up with for joy for myself. Joy is the hopeful confidence in which I stand when I know that I am known and loved. Joy is the hopeful confidence in which I stand when I know that I am known and loved. Okay, so that's why the experiences of glory are really foundational to experiences of joy. Because think of all those, especially the glory with people and God. Notice the difference there, by the way. If joy is the hopeful confidence in which I stand when I know that I am known and loved, then that means the glory of things doesn't really lead to joy, because things can't love you. Okay? Now, put an asterisk on this, because sometimes things can be reminders of the other kinds of glory. So your wedding ring is a thing that might bring you joy because it's reminding you about the relationship, okay, of the one who does love you back, right? But that's worth considering. How much do I go to things as a substitute for joy? Because they can be a substitute for joy. They're like great value joy. They're not the name brand, they're not the real thing. There's something missing there. Okay, but I can sometimes resort to that. So I'm going to leave the glory of things behind for the rest of the talk. I'm going to look at glory in people and glory in God. The most impressive experiences of joy that we have in life tend to be simultaneous with experiences of glory. Think of like hearing "I love you" from someone that you love for the first time. There's something glorious, again, at the human level, that glory of that exchange of moving to a new chapter, a new depth in your friendship. That's glorious, and it leads to so much joy in your heart. There's an intensity of the joy that's associated with that moment of glory, right? Or as we talked about these encounters with God and profound prayer, especially in a time of retreat, where you go to a different level, just get a different kind of experience in your relationship with God. There's the glory of God there, and that leads to a flowering of joy in your heart. Okay, so the most intense experiences of joy are kind of simultaneously with the most intense experiences of glory. But these impressive experiences can continue to instill that confidence in us even over the long haul, right? So even if I'm not super conscious, like fully and actively conscious of the love that my friend has for me, even right now, it still leads to a long-term joy in me. I lived in Italy for 5.5 years during my studies, which when people hear that, they're like, oh my gosh, that's so amazing living in Italy. It was super hard. I mean, it was amazing. Yeah, it's beautiful, it's great food, sure. But I'm thousands of miles away from the people that I love. And that was super hard. And like, once you've been around and seen all the impressive things a couple of times, I just want to hang out with my people, you know, and not my books. So it was really hard a lot of times. But there continued to be joy throughout that whole long time away from those people because they were with me. You know, I knew that they loved me, and I knew that I loved them. And so I never really felt alone or lonely there. I was kind of held up, buoyed by this, right? It's a really powerful movie I watched recently. It's called A Hidden Life. Anybody seen this movie, A Hidden Life? It's a very long movie. It's challenging to watch. It's what's his name? I'm not remembering the name of the director, but this director is a philosopher. And so the way to watch Terrence Malick, it's a Terrence Malick movie. The way to watch Terrence Malick movies, rather than think of yourself as going to watch a movie, think I'm going to go sit in my living room and have an art museum pass in front of me. Okay, that's more what it's like, right? So this particular movie, A Hidden Life, it's about the life of Blessed Franz Jägerstätter, who was an Austrian farmer during World War II. And he was a conscientious objector. He refused to join the army, even to be like a medical person or serve in the commissary, because to join the army would require him to sign an oath of fidelity to Adolf Hitler. And he couldn't bring himself in conscience to do that, so he refused to join the army, and he was eventually executed for it. So this is the story of that whole time, okay? And the movie begins with this really beautiful score, this beautiful music, as he's in the foothills Austria, of the Alps in Austria, which is just unbelievably gorgeous. And he has his wife and his daughters there, and they're delighted with each other. There's glory. So there's glory in this opening music, you know, the score that's going on there. You can see the glory as he interacts with his family. Even as things get darker through the movie, the score, like the score music gets a little twisted. There's a lot more sharps and flats and these things that are always kind of off. But somewhere in that score, you can hear the original glory music in there. It's just little pieces here and there, even in the midst of his struggles. And that was really powerful for me because he suffered a lot. But even in the midst of his suffering, he never doubted that God was walking with him through this, and his wife was supporting him. Even though she struggled with his decision, she kind of wanted him to back away from that. He was able to continue living with little pieces of joy here and there, even in the midst of his suffering, because he knew that he was known and loved. It's really powerful, right? So joy is resilient like that. When I know that I am known and loved, joy is present in my life. So, what happens if I'm not feeling joyful? What do I do about that? Because sometimes if I'm going through a season where I'm not feeling the joy, a lot of times what we start doing is looking for joy in things or looking for joy in all the wrong places. If joy is lacking in my life, what that means is that I doubt that I am known and loved. Right? Like, I don't know how lovable I really am. I don't know how much I am loved. So where does this come from? This lack of feeling or knowing that I'm loved, it can come from thinking harshly about myself. It can come from shame. I might miss out on some joy because I'm ashamed. There's something that I've done. There's something that I'm hiding that I've done. Like I don't want other people to see this, so I'm going to build up walls, right? I'm going to hide behind this fence here. And I end up feeling disconnected from other people. And I think, they say they love me, but if they really knew this about me, they wouldn't love me that much. That's what shame does. Total lie, by the way. You know, that's one of the evil one's most effective tools is to keep whispering little hints of shame in our ears. Oh, if they only knew this about you, they wouldn't be that impressed. So what happens if I find myself feeling shame? What's the antidote to that? Of course, Jesus, first and foremost, coming to him in prayer. But that's not as obvious as it sounds. Because sometimes in our shame, we might think, oh, I'm too ashamed to even approach him. I gotta fix myself first, and then I'll be ready to, then I'll be worthy to approach him. No, you won't. Because we're never worthy. But he doesn't care. That's the glory of the gospel. He comes seeking us exactly where he knows we need to be found, in the midst of what I'm most ashamed of. So if I find myself feeling really ashamed to the point that I'm staying away from God and others, what's the antidote to that? Praying for the gift of vulnerability. Lord, help me to just be honest and not hide from people. Help me to trust, first and foremost, in you. I can trust in my confessor. I can trust in the dear people who actually do love me, that they will love me through even this. And that vulnerability, and that self-acceptance, that's the kind of thing that starts leading us back to flashes of glory. When I'm vulnerable with somebody, and they actually don't swap me down, they actually accept me for who I am, that's glorious. And that feeds joy. Okay, so think about that. Is shame ever sapping my joy? Lord, give me a vulnerable heart. Help me be open. Help me to be honest. Help me to really communicate who I am. Not just a facade that I want the world to see. Because if they love my facade, I can still hide back here in my shame. Another way that we can kind of fall into these things, doubting that I am known and loved, is when I get really, I'm attending to the pressures around me rather than the graces and the gifts. I get really anxious. And in my anxiety of trying to attend to all the things and put out all the fires around me, I may doubt that I am known and loved. Doesn't anybody see all the stuff I have to do? Doesn't anybody notice? And it can lead to all this kind of anxiety. So what's the antidote to that one? Lord, give me a heart of gratitude. Help me to be mindful. Help me to know that you are present. Give me eyes that notice the beauty in my life and not just the struggles that are out there. The more grateful I am, the more aware I am of how much glory there is in my life. And the people, the experiences, and the always present God. Sometimes I might feel that I'm not known and I'm not loved because maybe there's a dysfunctional relationship in my life, a dysfunctional human relationship. Maybe there's even something abusive there that can make me feel like I am not loved and therefore I am not able to be joyful. The antidote here can be really complex. It can be a challenging thing. It might require reaching out to other friends to walk with you on this journey, but forgiveness and healing and possibly even separation from the offending party for at least a season might be part of the healing process there. This is a tough one, especially. But it's important that you be restored to knowing that I am lovable, I am known, I am loved, first and foremost by my God, but also by other beautiful people in my life. To reconnect with that glory through the grace of forgiveness and healing, or maybe even assisting that by taking a little time apart from the dysfunction. That can go a long way towards restoring experiences of glory and therefore restoring my joy. So we're getting ready to enter into this time of adoration. And so hopefully I've given you a few good things to have a great conversation with the Lord in there. You know, this may be a time of great hope and positivity for you. This might be a time when you just get to delight in your own glory story. Take some time to really notice the gifts and the beauty in your life. To notice how much you are known and loved. And to sit in confidence with that. But if you happen to be going through a tough time today, and you're having a hard time finding your way to joy, invite the Lord to show you what might be a little off in your own mind. Maybe I'm thinking incorrectly about myself. Maybe I'm pushing too much shame down on my own shoulders when that's not from the Lord. He doesn't want shame for me. He wants healing and restoration for me. So Lord, help us to know, how do we need to open up? How do we need to be more vulnerable? What are you asking us to accept within ourselves and to really openly share with the people around us who are loving, so I can finally know that I am known and loved? First John 4, verses 10 and 11, and then verse 20. And this is love, not that we have loved God, but that he has loved us and sent his Son as expiation for our sins. Beloved, if God so loved us, so we must also love one another. For whoever does not love a brother whom he has seen cannot love God whom he has not seen. This is really the starting point of love for us. This is the starting point of making our way into these experiences of glory. First and foremost, we're about ready to receive this outpouring of love from God. I just ask you to allow yourself to be really open and vulnerable before him in this prayer time to come. Invite him to show you how you might have thought incorrectly about some situations in your life. Invite him to lead you with peaceful guidance in some thorny situations. Invite him to fit you with goggles that are custom made to highlight glory in the world around you. Help me to see your glory, Lord. Here in this time of prayer, in the relationships that you've blessed me with, bring us your healing and your peace. Restore our joy so we can stand in confidence, knowing of your love and of your mercy. Allow us to be ministers of that mercy and that goodness for other people. Allow us to become ministers of glory to the people that you've blessed us to be able to share this life with. In so doing, not only will our joy be filled up, but their joy as well. You can do this, Lord. You are all that we need to do this. So Jesus, we trust in you. Amen. Thanks very much. Have an awesome time of prayer.
Thank you.